is nice to really have the opportunity to talk about marriage. Welcome you one more time to the Real Testifiers with SOP Maxwell. I feel very burdened, and one of the key areas where I feel it is important we'll need to really dissect and discuss logically and more cognitively is the aspect of marriage. You see, marriage has nothing when it comes to merging two different souls together. See, it has nothing really to do with enormous paperwork. You tend to hear people tell you they have done these prospects, they've done that strategy arrangement, but yet when the two individuals concerned come together, it still doesn't play out. We've heard stories of people that have been in marriages for 20 years, 25 years, still coming down with a diverse scenario. So this shows us that marriage definitely does not sit more on, oh, I have the experience. That means I can't fail when it comes to marriage. Experience is not enough. We've had scenarios where people will pray, go to mountains and pray, and make declarations that they want the right marriage partner. And upon having visions and having directions spiritually, you still tend to hear them come down with divorces. Like, I can't cope with this man again, or I can't cope with this woman again. And it beats your imagination what has gone wrong. So this gets to show that prayers alone isn't enough to keep the marriage. And we've seen couples who have attended marriage courses, and they've kind of opened up to say, oh, I found my right partner, and to use the Christian palace, I have the bone of my bone and the flesh of my flesh, and with this individual and with that individual, we will live to eternity, or probably till death do us part. But within the space of a few years, you still find the same people throwing aspersions, exasperated scenario where they call themselves demons, and we begin to ask ourselves, what has gone wrong? I would begin evidently with three basic things that we need to pay attention to. We're having our experience in the learning curve. The first thing I'll talk about that I want us to clinically, brutally pay attention to is that average human being is built to work within the spectrum of a variety of relationships. No one human being was constructed or configured to fit into one type of relationship. We were created to work within the space of a variety of relationships concurrently. Let me break it down this way. A man wakes up in the morning and thinks of work. He gets out of the house and gets into public transportation. Within that public transport system, a relationship begins. So you have the driver, you have the conductor, and you have passengers. At that very moment, there is this interconnection of these various characters in the public transport system. The relationship builds at that very moment as the trip goes on. The moment the individual gets out of that public transport system or that vehicular movement, that relationship ends at that very moment. Remember, when he steps out of the house, there was no intent of having any relationship. But the moment he gets into a particular environment, a relationship begins. So in a way, he has been structured to navigate from one relationship to another. So the moment he gets out of the public burst and he moves straight into the office, another relationship begins. Don't forget, the initial one he had it in the burst has ended. So he steps into the office, sees colleagues, sees the boss, sees other key players in the business setup. A new relationship begins. Now, this relationship can flow from around 8 a.m. till around 5 p.m. in the evening. Now, that relationship defines his thinking, his decisions, his movements within that space of time. The moment it's 5 p.m., that relationship begins to shut down because he's about to leave work. So as he leaves the environment of the workplace and he steps into the public transport system to go back home, another relationship begins. So it's very clear. It is not the relationship that we get into that is faulty or that we have issues with. It is how we react, how we accept or work with this relationship we go in and out of. Let me make it more practically stated. Most relationships suffer, mostly to be more concerned about marriage, because the players in this relationship are not really picking up the roles at every point in time. For instance, a man might want to be a husband, but the moment children start coming in, he might find it very difficult to fit into the role of a father, but he was okay with the role of a husband. And that starts affecting the marriage. But if he fits well into the role of the husband, the role of the father, the sanctity of the marriage is maintained. On the other end, the woman might want to say, oh, I love to be with my husband. I want to be a lovely and loyal wife to him. But the moment children begin to set in, there is a bifurcation of responsibilities. And that makes it very, very difficult in some cases for most women to combine these relationship portals. So the challenge here, or the issue, is not with the marriage. It's with the independent roles we are to play that serve as components to the marriage. So, the first thing we need to really look at for if marriage must stay sane and well structured is to identify the individual roles we are to play in the relationship. Remember, prayers is not enough, experience is not enough, marriage courses and advice from counselors is not enough. We have to come to this brutal understanding that we need to get into these roles and act them. Another thing again we have to look at if marriage must stay sound is sacrifices. Now, I can't over-exaggerate the importance of sacrifice. From the spiritual to the physical, sacrifice connotes one thing. You have to give something for something. That is what it connotes. Whether you're looking at it from the spiritual angle or you're looking at it from the physical angle, it simply connotes that you have to give something if you must get something. And there is no individual that has towed the path of sacrifice without having an expectation. Meaning that if I have to sacrifice something, it means I'm looking for something. Or if I need to make a sacrifice, it means I'm actually trying to picture a particular need which I have interest in. So if marriage will work, if marriage will stay sane, what is that thing that I'm willing to sacrifice? Let me give you a scenario. When I got married, I had to have a roundtable talk with my wife. And one of the things we discussed was friends. Very important. A lot of people just tend to overlook this. It's very, in fact, friends play key roles in most relationships. if you give it a whole lot of room. Friends most times define the rhythm and texture of most relationships if you give them that room. So I sat her down and I told her that we need to have a structure before friends would start coming in. She wasn't really comfortable about it. Personally, I don't like having too much crowd in a relationship. So friends was not part of the agenda. So I made it very clear to her, and she wasn't, like a natural human will do, reacted against it. But the thing is this: if you must achieve something in life, something has to be sacrificed. It's the law of success. You can't override that. If marriage must work, it means you should be ready to sacrifice something. So if we are to sacrifice friendship in order for the both of us to sit together and make marriage work, so be it. But it wasn't easy. But I had to set up an example. I guess this is where the challenge is in most times. Most times we have the challenges because we want to make something work, probably as a head or as a leader. We want our followers or those that we're working with to take out a particular action, but we are not willing to stand in front of the chariot and lead the way. And that is where we have most issues with most individuals that are leaders. You want to be in charge, but you don't want to sacrifice. In fact, the sacrifice should come from the leader first, not the followers. If a leader sacrifices, the followers will follow. Like they always say, the head of horses that moves takes the same direction of the one in front. So if as a leader you're not moving in the direction that you want the whole entire head of family to go, how would you blame the family for failure? So I decided to say all my friends would see me in my office or we meet in church, so that we can have some sanity at home. And I told her, if you see a friend knock at the door checking on me, then you can bring all your harem of friends to the house. And sincerely speaking, we're going 5 years now. We've not had issues with that. And she's come to understand the fact that friends can only be given a particular level of space. You can't wholeheartedly just give them the whole 9 yards to come into your marriage. It's very, very important. If you have to sacrifice, please define the length and breadth of the sacrifice, so that it doesn't come to become a thing that will lead to suicidal missions. Because I've seen a whole lot of people breaking out of marriage because they feel they've sacrificed so much and the other partner isn't acknowledging these level of sacrifices. This definitely happens because you have actually not defined what you intend to sacrifice. If you are attaining success, you're probably willing to attain success. You will be told, oh, you need to sacrifice this, you need to sacrifice that. Or you need to sacrifice your time, you need to sacrifice a cow or a chicken or what. So you already have a picture of what the sacrifice item is. The challenge here is when you don't really know what item of sacrifice you have to give up, but you intend to sacrifice. So you go all 9 yards sacrificing. So you keep on sacrificing and sacrificing and sacrificing. And in the long run, it wears on you. The burden becomes so enormous that you can carry anymore. And it leads to frustration, depression, and the next thing is suicidal thoughts. So if you must think of sacrifice, please, let's have the both partners come to a round table and discuss what level of sacrifices we need to put up with. This way it will be easier to manage marriage. I once had a client, Mr. Shola by name, who had to make a brutal decision with the wife about their jobs. There was not much family time with the kids, so one of them had to be at home to take care of the kids. And they both look at their income, and the wife decided to resign while her husband works, so she can have enough time for the family. That's the level of sacrifice. It's defined. They both sat down and looked at it. That the challenge here is when one partner is willing to sacrifice and is not really bringing the other partner to recognition of it. So when the side effect comes in, when the moment that you need some encouragement comes in, the other partner doesn't really see it as necessary because there was not much of acknowledgement when the sacrifice started. So it's very, very important that the both partners sit down and look at the level of sacrifice and define it. It's very important. Define the level of sacrifice. So we started with the key things we need to watch out for if we have to really look into how marriages can stay strong and safe. We started with defining your relationship. Secondly, I talked about sacrifice. What level of sacrifice, the definition of sacrifice you have to give in. And lastly, couples must have time for retrospection. You have to take time to do appraisals. In big corporations, they do what we call appraisals. To go back to what you've done, what we intend to do, and what we're doing. It's very important. You can't override this. Like I said, it doesn't really boil down to prayers alone and fasting. It doesn't boil down to experience alone. It doesn't really hammer more on marriage courses or counseling or every Sunday pep talk from any minister or so. It has to do with the both individuals sitting down and looking at the entire fabric of the relationship. What are we doing right and what are we doing right? With this level of retrospection, you'll be able to dot your I's and cross your T's. That way, the lapses can be checkmated and whatever's downtrend that we have or is being exhibited can be taken care of. No man was created to be too perfect that mistakes will not be made, and no woman was created to be too sound that can actually fall to the vice or the wiles of pressure. But with appraisals, which could be done monthly, quarterly, yearly, like I notice of some couples who do the appraisals on their marriage anniversaries. So they just sit down out in a very quiet environment and just discuss their marriage. That could be a form of appraisal. So you need to have it. That way, bruises emotionally or side talk can actually come into bear and both parties can discuss it. And another thing again about retrospection is it builds or it creates that bonding of communication. Because as they say, once there is a breakdown of communication, things go bizarre. But the moment you keep talking about it and not just tolerating it, because I don't strongly believe in talking and no action. And the only way action will not be emanated is when you begin to tolerate what you don't want. The more you tolerate it, the more it begins to manifest. But once you talk about it and you are taking every measure not to tolerate what is giving you that hampering situation, then progress is sure. I really wish that marriages will last long. And for every individual, it's different. Because as they say, different strokes for different folks. So what is good for A might not be good for B. So comparing your marriage with another marriage has no basis. Because you're unique, you're different. And every individual was created so to complement another being. We were not created to be too perfect in ourselves. Rather, we were created to be perfected with a measure with another being. And that's why God took one rib out of man to show that you can't be complete, you're not perfect. I am the only perfect being because I'm God. So for you to be perfect, you need a partner, a helpmate. And that's where the compliment comes in. I would want us to really sit back and think about it. What happened to those good days when we started off the marriage? The good words, the romantic scenarios, the outings, the laughs, the jibes, the smiles. What has happened to all of them? And it's not like the individuals have changed. The man is still the man and the woman is still the woman. So what has brought about this entire quagmire that is making our marriage not to work? And one good thing we need to really understand is this. This should be my giveaway. For a marriage to be sound, though we don't have any perfect one out there, but for us to walk towards that pathway of soundness in marriage, we need to know two people are involved here, the man and the woman. And that's why it's just the two of them on the altar each time marriage is being orchestrated. And one of the components of a soundness of marriage is having the season of that marriage. And to understand the season of the marriage, you need to know there are three different levels of the season: the morning, the afternoon, and the night. The three different seasons: morning, afternoon, and night. And what best describes the morning, the afternoon, and the night? The man. M-A-N. Morning, afternoon, night. So the first primary component that makes up the season of marriage is having a man. So the man comes up and says, "Oh, I have to leave my father's house and my mother's house and cleave unto a woman, and together we become one." So upon activating that divine direction, he needs to look for what will work on the morning, afternoon, and night. The second component, the person that will work on the morning, afternoon, and night, work on the morning, afternoon, and night, and that's a woman. So the woman works on the man. So these are the two primary components that leads to the pathway of a sound marriage. Every other thing is just a complement. Just compliments. So once the man and the woman can come together, understanding that there are different facets in the relationship and sacrifices have to be made, and we must as individuals have constant retrospection to the relationship, then marriage will be a blissful moment. And this is what I wish for you, and this is what I pray will be your portion. And as you listen to this audio over and over again, in your Lord we grant you all favor of having sound marriages, because the beauty of a marriage is to be happy in the marriage business. Pray that God will be with us, and I wish you success. Alright, in my next post, I'll be reflecting more on the purpose of timing. How to perfect your time, how to understand your timing, how to understand waiting on your time. A lot of people are actually having this, and there are challenges on the perfection of timing. I believe the video will do us a whole lot of good and give us direct insights to how we go about it. If you've not subscribed yet, I encourage you, please kindly go to the bottom of this audio visual and subscribe. Hit on the notification bell so you get notified when the next post will come up. And don't forget, drop a comment and let's hear your side of the story. Let's hear what challenges you are passing through in your marriage and how you are having the different phases to help you get about it. Remember, your story could be a motivation for somebody else. There's somebody out there that is passing through what I call a difficult situation in marriage. And who knows, probably your comments could serve as a motivation, as an encouragement to that person not to give in, not to throw in the towel. Marriages are targets for the enemy, because one of the greatest things that brings you happiness, that brings you bliss, that brings you multiplication is marriage. And because it is divine, the devil attacks marriages first before he attacks individuals. So please send in your comments, and don't forget your existence in life should be navigated by your purpose. I remain yours truly, SOP Maxwell, and this audiovisual is totally sponsored and powered by SOP Maxwell Ministries. God bless you. See you next time.